My boss bought my coworker a brand new Jeep for his promotion. Me? I got a lottery ticket, still stuck to the cheap, glossy card with a silver scratch-off that left dust on my fingers. Everyone clapped when he tossed the keys across the conference room table. Nobody clapped when my boss slid that ticket in front of me like it was some kind of joke with a moral at the end. "Hey, Mike, you never know," he said. "You might be a millionaire by tonight." I laughed. Everyone laughed. Because what else do you do when your 5 years of staying late get priced at $2 and a bad punchline? I remember the way the Jeep key fob sounded when it hit Ethan's palm. It wasn't loud, just a soft little plastic tap. But in my head, it was the sound of a door closing. Not theirs, mine. I'm not the kind of guy who flips tables. I don't shout, I don't throw drinks, and I don't storm out dramatically. I'm the dependable one. The guy who fixes broken Excel formulas and covers shifts when people's kids are sick. The guy everyone calls solid, and then somehow never thinks of when it's time to hand out raises. So I smiled, said thanks for the fun surprise, and pretended my face wasn't burning while Ethan twirled the keyring around his finger and asked if he could take a victory lap around the building. Of course they said yes. The conference room still smelled like catered sandwiches and that weird cologne my boss wears. HR had brought in a sheet cake with blue frosting that said, "Congratulations, Ethan," even though there were 4 of us on the team who'd hit all the same targets. 4 names on the spreadsheet, 1 name on the cake. "Speech!" someone shouted. Ethan did what Ethan always does, jumped up, buttoned his blazer, put a hand to his chest like a parody of humility. "I couldn't have done this without my team," he said, looking directly at my boss instead of at us. "Especially Mike. Man, you're the backbone of this place." Everyone turned their heads toward me, like being called a backbone was its own prize. I raised my little lottery ticket between 2 fingers and gave it a stupid half salute. The room laughed again. My boss grinned, clapped me on the shoulder and said, "See? Recognition all around." Recognition. That word stuck to my ribs like something I'd swallowed wrong. After the speeches and the photos, people drifted back toward their desks. Ethan stayed behind with my boss, leaning over the table, talking about his new responsibilities, his parking spot, the Jeep lifestyle. I slipped out with my paper plate, my slice of cake, and my lottery ticket folded in half in my pocket so no one would see it. My desk is by the window, far enough from the glass office that I can't hear what they say in there. Just see the silhouettes and the occasional burst of laughter. I sat down, pushed aside the quarterly report I'd been cleaning up, and stared at my ticket. It was one of those scratchers with a big red jackpot fever logo in flames that made it look like it was trying too hard. There was a little line at the bottom that said, "Odds of winning any prize, 1 in 4.2. Odds of getting a 4% cost of living raise this year were apparently lower than that. My fingers smelled like cheap frosting and coffee when I picked up a coin from my drawer. Old habit. I keep a jar of change there for parking meters and vending machines and apparently consolation prizes. I started scratching small circles, silver dust collecting in a little pile on my notepad. Nothing. 3 symbols, no match. Next row, nothing. Last row, $5. I stared at that tiny green 5 like it was mocking me. $5. After taxes, I probably made that in the time it took them to debate what colored Jeep to lease for Ethan. I could have thrown the ticket away. I could have walked into my boss's office and asked him calmly why the guy who spent most of the last campaign resending my slides as his own was driving home in a new vehicle while I was heading to the grocery store with a coupon and a scratch-off. I didn't do either. I slid the ticket back into my pocket and went back to fixing a report no one would read with my name on it. Around 3, my boss finally emerged from his office with Ethan trailing behind him like an excited golden retriever. The whole floor heard about the Jeep then, what model it was, how it had that new car smell, how the dealership guy had said he'd never seen a company do something that generous before. "That's the culture here," my boss boomed, loud enough for people in another department to hear. We reward excellence. He said it almost directly over my head. Ethan swung by my desk, knuckles rapping lightly on the partition. Dude, can you believe this? I'm still in shock. Yeah, I said. Crazy. You riding down with us to see it later? He asked. Boss says we're going to take a picture by it for the company LinkedIn. I've got a client call at 4, I lied. Maybe after. Suit yourself. He shrugged, but not before glancing at my half-hidden lottery ticket on the desk. Hey man, if you hit it big, you can buy your own Jeep, right? He laughed and walked away before I could answer. The thing is, I wasn't even angry. Not really. Anger is hot. Fast. What I felt was colder. Heavier. Like someone had quietly moved me from valued team member to background prop and expected me to keep smiling so the scene would look good. It's a weird moment when you realize your loyalty has been one-sided. It doesn't come with a dramatic soundtrack. There's no slow zoom in on your face. It's just quiet. You're sitting at your desk with cake crumbs on your napkin, listening to someone talk about company values, and a little switch flips in your head that says, okay, I get it now. That was the day my boss gave me a lottery ticket instead of a promotion. I thought that was the insult. It turned out to be the receipt. I didn't plan on doing anything about it. Not yet. Mostly because the next morning, when I pulled into the parking lot, the first thing I saw was the Jeep, parked diagonally across 2 spots, shining like it had been buffed with the tears of underpaid interns. Ethan stood beside it with his phone up, filming a slow pan while pretending he wasn't filming a slow pan. Mike, get over here, man, he called out when he saw me. You gotta be in this. The caption's gonna be teamwork pays off. Teamwork. Funny word coming from a guy who once asked me to look over his quarterly audit, which was code for do all of it before the deadline because I forgot it existed. I forced a smile and adjusted my backpack. I'll pass. Big morning. He frowned a little like he couldn't compute why anyone wouldn't want to be a background extra in his personal highlight reel. Then he shrugged and went back to recording the Jeep from every angle like he was shooting a car commercial. Inside the office, the mood was different. People acted like there was some kind of invisible tension, the kind that makes conversations drop to whispers when you walk by. A few coworkers gave me that look, the tight-lipped half-smile people use when they don't know what to say but feel like they should say something. At my desk, someone had left a sticky note on my monitor. You deserved better. No signature. I sat down, pulled my headphones on, and tried to drown everything out with work. But work didn't stay quiet. Around 10:15, my boss called me into his office. He didn't ask. He didn't knock. He just opened the door halfway and said, Mike, step in when you can, which is corporate language for do it now, but I want to pretend it's optional. I walked in. He gestured toward the chair like he was awarding me a seat in Congress. So, he began, leaning back with his hands folded over his stomach, I hope there are no hard feelings about yesterday. I kept my voice steady. Hard feelings about what? The promotion, the recognition, the Jeep, all of it. I said congratulations. You did? He nodded as if that proved something, and that's why I want to make sure we stay aligned. You're a valuable part of this team, a real foundation guy. Foundation, backbone, support beam. I was starting to feel like a load-bearing wall. I'm glad to hear that, I said. Good, because I'll need you to help Ethan transition into his new role. There it was, the real reason for this chat. You want me to train him? I said. My boss smiled the way people smile when they think they're being generous. You already know the systems better than anyone, and Ethan has the leadership qualities we're looking to elevate. Together, you'll make an unbeatable team. Translation: Mike does the work. Ethan takes the credit. Boss gets to brag. I swallowed that thought and nodded. All right, what do you need first? He slid a packet across the desk. 36 pages stapled together, full of outlines and deadlines and tasks that had all been mine last quarter. We need him fully up to speed by Friday. It's Wednesday, he shrugged. You're fast. I took the packet, stood, left. Not because I agreed, because if I stayed another second, I might have said exactly what I thought of his recognition culture. Back at my desk, I thumbed through the packet. Every line item was something I could do in my sleep. Every deadline was built around the assumption that I would be the one doing it. And every task was labeled with Ethan's name. That kind of thing does something to you. Not instantly, not like a punch to the face. More like a drop of water landing on the same spot of a stone every single day until the stone finally cracks. At lunch, I sat alone in the break room. Not because I chose to. I just didn't want to listen to Ethan explain the Jeep's Bluetooth system for the 5th time. I was halfway through a microwave burrito when Ethan walked in with the confidence of a man who'd never heard the word boundaries. "Dude," he said, tossing his keys on the table, "you're gonna love working with me. I'm all about collaboration." I kept chewing. "And hey, I know you probably felt a little overshadowed yesterday," he said, lowering his voice like he was being compassionate. "But stick with me, and there'll be plenty of wins for both of us." I stared at him. "Plenty of wins?" "Totally, like your attention to details. Bro, that's gold. And I'm the big picture guy. It's a perfect match. A perfect match. Like we were characters in some Office Buddy comedy." "I'll email you the files," I said. "Cool, cool," he replied, already walking away. "Oh, one more thing," I paused. "My girlfriend wants to take a picture with the Jeep later. Would you mind being the one who hands me the keys in the shot? She wants it to look ceremonial." I blinked once. "No." He blinked back, confused. "No, you can't, or no, you don't want to." "No, I'm not doing that." He laughed like I was joking, then noticed I wasn't laughing. "Okay," he said slowly. "Just trying to include you, man." He walked out. I sat there with my burrito going cold, staring at the wall clock ticking too loudly. And that's when the shift started happening. That quiet click in my head from yesterday? It got louder, because later that afternoon I opened the shared drive to start transferring files to Ethan. Except when I opened the folder, nothing looked right. Things were missing, reports were half finished, numbers didn't match, and worse, changes had been made under my name. My stomach tightened. I dug deeper. More inconsistencies. More edits I hadn't made. More signs that someone had been messing with deliverables while I was the one expected to carry the blame. And then, halfway through comparing 2 versions of a report, I realized something. Ethan didn't understand any of this. He'd been editing things, guessing, covering tracks, and labeling them with my initials. I leaned back in my chair, heartbeat slow and controlled. That Jeep wasn't the beginning, it was the warning. And then something happened that shifted everything. By Thursday morning, the fuse was already burning. I just didn't know how fast it would reach the dynamite. Our department had a major presentation due that afternoon. One of those high-stakes updates that the regional directors actually bother to attend. Normally, I handled the data, the visuals, the explanations, clear, factual, airtight work. But this time, Ethan was leading, meaning he'd talk and I'd pray nothing exploded behind him. Around 9:30, I opened the shared folder again to finalize the last numbers, and my stomach dropped. A whole subsection was gone. Not mislabeled, not archived, deleted, and the file history showed exactly one edit. Ethan. Timestamp, 1:17 a.m. I rubbed my face hard, trying to force calm into my skin. Maybe he'd backed it up somewhere else. Maybe he misunderstood what the section was for. Maybe, God help me, he thought he was streamlining. I walked to his desk. He looked up from his phone. "Mike, mornin'. Big day, bro?" "Where's section 4? I asked. He blinked. "Section 4? Of what?" "The presentation." "Oh, yeah, that part was too dense. I simplified it. Simplified." "Where is it?" I repeated. He pointed casually toward the trash icon on his desktop. "Should be in there. I deleted the extra stuff." "The extra stuff is the basis for all the projections," I said, heat rising behind my eyes. "The directors need that data." "They need clarity," he countered, leaning back like he was proud of himself. "Trust me, They don't want spreadsheets. They want the big picture. And where's the supporting work for the big picture? I asked. He hesitated the way people hesitate when they realize they've built a sandcastle in high tide. That's not my part, he said. That's your skill set, right? Details? I stared at him. It's due in 4 hours. Right, he said brightly. Which is why you should start on it. I've got to finish practicing my talking points. He said it without a hint of irony, like we were still playing the same game, like I was still willing to carry him across the finish line. I didn't argue, not with him. I just walked straight into my boss's office, closed the door behind me, and placed my laptop on the desk. We have a problem, I said. He sighed before I'd even finished the sentence. Mike, I'm in the middle of... It's Ethan, I cut in. He deleted critical sections of the presentation. He's been altering files incorrectly, and he's been labeling edits with my initials. My boss's eyebrows rose a millimeter, just enough to acknowledge I existed. You're stressed, he said slowly. Transitions can be messy. That's why we put leaders in place, to steady the ship. I'm steady, I replied, voice flat. He's sinking us. He exhaled through his nose, disappointed like a parent at a school conference. Mike, he said, you need to support this process, not fight it. Ethan's stepping up. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I didn't explain another word. I just closed my laptop. All right, I said. Handle it your way. I walked out. Something inside me went very still, like the moment before a storm breaks, a kind of quiet resolve, sharp and final. By noon, the storm arrived. We gathered in the conference room. The big bosses dialed in. Ethan took his place at the front, beaming like he'd been born under a spotlight. My boss gave him an encouraging nod, the kind parents give toddlers before a school play. Then Ethan opened the presentation. Slide 1 looked fine. Slide 2? A mess. Slide 3. Numbers missing. Slide 4. Contradictions, gaps, nonsense. The directors frowned. By slide 5, someone actually said, Wait, this doesn't add up. My boss shot me a frantic look, the kind of look that says, Fix it. Fix this right now. But I stayed perfectly still. Ethan kept stumbling, sweat beading across his forehead. He clicked again. The graph that appeared on the screen didn't match the title. At all. It wasn't even the right data set. The room went silent. Not awkward silent, dangerous silent. The kind of silence that means something has snapped. I think there might be a technical issue, my boss stammered. One of the directors leaned forward. Who prepared this? Ethan swallowed. My boss tried to interrupt. It was a joint effort. No, I said. Every head turned. Ethan prepared it, I continued. Alone, against my recommendations. And he deleted supporting material last night. Ethan's face drained of color. That's not what... I kept going, calm and direct. Every sentence hit like a hammer, placed, not swung. He altered files without knowledge of the material. He mislabeled changes under my name. I documented every revision. I have version histories, timestamps, and backups. My boss stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. And, I added quietly, I notified him of the missing section this morning. He told me to just handle it. The directors exchanged glances, sharp, pointed, unmistakable. One finally spoke. Send everything you have to HR and to us, today. My boss began sweating. Ethan looked like he was about to faint. After the meeting, nobody moved for a moment. The room felt colder. Ethan got up first. Mike, man, why did you... I cut him off gently. You thought I'd save you, I said. That I'd carry you again? But I don't do that anymore. He shook his head, panicked. You don't understand? They're gonna... But that wasn't my problem anymore. My boss slammed the conference room door once everyone else had left. What were you thinking? He snapped. I was thinking, I said quietly, that I'm done being the foundation while others take the credit. You blindsided us. No, I replied. I warned you. You ignored it. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing, muttering, "You just destroyed our quarter." I watched him struggle like a man suddenly realizing the fire he set had wrapped around his own feet, and then it hit him. "You planned this," he whispered. I met his eyes. "I documented this." He stared at me, chest rising and falling, and for the first time, actually the very first time since I'd known him, I saw fear. Real, quiet fear. Not of me, of consequences. Later that afternoon, HR emailed me requesting a full report. The directors CC'd themselves. A second email followed, formal and polite. "Thank you for speaking up." I leaned back in my chair. They thought I'd break. Instead, I woke up. HR moved fast, faster than I expected. By Friday morning, people were being pulled one by one into small glass offices, doors half shut, blinds angled just enough to let everyone know something serious was happening. The hallway had that electric quiet. When voices drop, keyboards slow, and nobody knows where to look. I kept working. Not out of loyalty, those days were gone, but because calm makes people nervous when they know panic is the correct response. Around 10:15, HR called me in. Two people sat waiting, Melissa, the director who'd questioned the presentation, and an HR manager who looked like she'd slept in her office. They weren't angry. They weren't warm either. They were the kind of still that means reality is about to rearrange itself. "Mike," Melissa began, "we reviewed your documentation, all of it. Your version histories, notes, emails. You were thorough." I nodded once. "I had concerns." "You had more than concerns," she replied. "You had evidence." They asked follow-ups. I answered honestly. I didn't dramatize anything. I didn't downplay anything. Every response was the same even tone, like I'd been practicing neutrality in a mirror. When the meeting ended, Melissa stood. "We'll handle the rest. Thank you for your professionalism." I left the room feeling lighter, not triumphant, not vengeful, just steady, like a man who'd been carrying too much weight for too long and finally set it down. An hour later, the first domino fell. The glass office at the end of the hall, the boss's office, had its blinds pulled shut, not halfway, fully. Then the regional VP walked in, not the kind of visit that happens without warning. 10 minutes passed, 20, 30. Then the door opened and my boss stepped out, face red, jaw locked, the look of someone who'd just been handed the bill for a meal he thought someone else was paying for. He didn't look at me, didn't look at anyone. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, grabbed his personal things, watch, water bottle, a framed picture of his dog, and placed them in a box the HR manager had brought. People stared without staring. Eyes flicked up, then down. Some whispered, some didn't dare breathe. He walked out without a word. No goodbye email, no speech, no lessons learned. Just the sound of his shoes crossing the tile, and then he was gone. Ethan was next. HR escorted him from the break room, his face blotchy, confused, small in a way I'd never seen before. He asked something quietly, but the HR manager shook her head and kept walking. When they reached his desk, he tried to grab his bag, but she stopped him. "Your items will be mailed," she said. He whispered something like, "This is insane. I didn't mean—" She didn't answer. The two security guards who'd appeared casually at the elevator weren't there for intimidation. They were there for certainty, and certainty tends to be very quiet. The office felt like it was holding its breath as Ethan disappeared down the hallway. The same hallway where he'd strutted in 3 days earlier, Jeep keys dangling from his finger. That Jeep? The company repo team had already taken it from the parking lot an hour before. I didn't smile. Not because I pitied him, but because satisfaction doesn't always need a grin. Sometimes it's just the absence of bitterness. After lunch, Melissa stopped by my desk. "Your interim assignment is ready," she said. "You'll report directly to operations for the next month. They'd like you to assist with restructuring." Restructuring. Corporate code for, "We're burning the field so it can grow correctly this time." I nodded. "Understood." "You're stable," she added almost to herself. "We need that right now." The rest of the day passed in a strange, soft haze, like the office was a room where windows had finally been opened after years of stale air. People approached me quietly. "Hey man, you okay? You did the right thing. It was overdue. I'm glad someone finally said something. Not praise, not applause, just recognition with weight behind it. The real kind." By 5 p.m., the adrenaline had worn off, and a different feeling took its place. Clarity, not excitement, not pride. Clarity. I went home, made dinner, sat on my couch in the quiet, and realized something simple. I didn't want to stay there anymore. Not because I was running away from anything, because I was done surviving environments I had to navigate like minefields. On Monday, after a calm weekend and an even calmer cup of coffee, I typed my resignation. Polite, firm, complete. Melissa read it in silence. "You're sure?" she asked. "I am. You know you're not being pushed out." "I know." "You could stay," she said. "You'd advance." I met her eyes. "I'd rather choose a place where I don't have to prove I deserved respect." She nodded once, slow, thoughtful, and signed the release. 2 weeks later, I walked out with a small box of my own things. Not escorted, not rushed, just done. I didn't have a Jeep waiting for me in the parking lot. I had my old car, 2 dents, a squeaky fan belt, and 200,000 miles. But when I started the engine, something settled in my chest. Peace, a quiet kind, the kind that doesn't need explaining. I took a new job the following month. Smaller company, better leadership, a team that listens instead of applauds, the loudest person in the room. My first day, my new manager said, "You come highly recommended. We're glad to have someone with your integrity. Not skill, not speed, not endurance, integrity." That word meant more than any promotion. Sometimes people think justice is loud, dramatic, public. But real justice, real balance, it can be quiet. It can be simple. It can be the moment you walk away without anger, without fear, without needing to look back. Ethan lost his Jeep. My boss lost his title. The company lost 2 people who were never leaders to begin with. And me? I gained something they never offered. Myself. No confetti. No spotlight. No applause. Just the kind of ending that lets you breathe for the first time in years. A clean desk. A steady pulse. A road ahead that finally belongs to you.